talking about layoffs when the job is done, okay? We're talking about a lot of folks who are workers. What this is telling me is that the supply of labor might exceed the demand for those workers a little bit. All right, so you have a lot of workers that want these jobs. The jobs are growing, but there's the growth of labor that want to work those jobs is faster. They have a higher growth rate in the labor supply than in the labor demand. And that's one thing that we look at when we're trying to decipher these numerical measures. You know, why is there a difference? Why do we see these various correlations? See something similar over here in prefab enclosures, right? Where do we make prefab enclosures in this area?
Elkhart.
Elkhart. Well, this is again back in 1990 to 2000. I suspect that the rank would be much lower here. Look at the wage growth rank. Right? A lot of folks in the Wakarusa area, in the Elkhart County area, and even these days here, they wanted more jobs than were available. And so, you know. Anyway, I thought this was a very interesting chart to at least make note of, and you know, maybe we could do something with that later. We can actually take a look at some of the industries that might relate to the industries in LaPorte and Porter counties. Which of these did we identify, I think there were a couple of them, identify as clusters, or as at least part, we didn't do clusters yet, defined as part of our economic base in LaPorte and Porter counties. Did you do both LaPorte and Porter counties, or did you just do
Yes.
LaPorte? Okay. What about LaPorte County? Which of these would we identify as clusters? Hospitality and tourism. Okay. You see, nationwide ranks 10. Well, back 20 years ago. 20 to 10 years ago, and 11th. Okay, so it's pretty vibrant, I would imagine. It's probably relatively similar here. What else?
Heavy construction services.
Heavy construction services, yeah, I think that's something you talked about. Okay, what else?
Transportation.
Transportation, logistics, that's why I kept lingering here. Yeah, I'll give you a hint. All right, there we are. Let me give you a hint right here. I'll have to hit the board or something. You know, I've done that before. Anything else you can see offhand?
No manufacturing, some automotive.
Some automotive, yeah, okay. Automotive, I want to call them peripheral industries, but support industries in automotive. We're not manufacturing cars here, but we're manufacturing the parts for cars. Okay. What else? We'd like to have some of that. A little entertainment around here would be fun. Plastics? Somebody say plastics? Plastics, okay. All right. What's some other ones? I think this is what you were talking about. Was it heavy machinery you were talking about before? Yeah. Go a little further west of us. It's a lot of medical devices, and east of us, medical devices, right? We're talking about Elkhart County. Is it Elkhart County?
Kosciuszko.
Kosciuszko County, right? Medical devices, okay. Aerospace, that would be more like in the South Bend area. There's a lot of that. Although they're selling the Hummer plant to the Chinese, I think, something like that. Not so much pharmaceuticals, construction materials. See, we can identify clusters and relate those to the national rankings and see how they rank here in our area versus the national level. Incidentally, one of the things that I did gloss over, and I didn't even mention it yet, was the measurement of the location quotient. Remember we talked about that on occasion. Remember what the definition of the location quotient was? No, nobody remembers the name of what the location quotient meant. And I have some notes here. Let me try to explain what it is. Because you see it popping up in the literature all the time. There's a formula. Yeah, look at that. Formula for computing location quotients is simply written as a ratio of two fractions. The first fraction is the ratio of local employment in a particular industry divided by the total local employment. That goes in the numerator, and then the denominator is the reference area employment, the whole reference area employment in the industry, divided by the total reference area employment. By reference area, it could be location quotient for a region, it could be a state, it could be a country. That is the general formula for this. There are some issues with using the location quotient to really help us understand the incidence of a cluster. Literature is not unanimous in saying, oh, this is what we should look at to see if we have a cluster in a particular industry. There are some other measurements which we will talk about next time, and that will be in some of the readings that I'll be giving you. There have been some studies that will look at another analytical tool, but this is the location quotient formula, and we will be coming back to that certainly next week. Okay. But I'm going to put this on the iDrive. Everybody have access to my iDrive? You have access to, no you don't. Okay, I will email this to you, okay? I'll email this to everybody, my little notes. Once in a while, as I'm preparing my slides, I say, instead of putting stuff in a slide, I'll just put on a note, and then I'll email the note to you. This way you can have it. Just, you can take it, print it out if you like to, line a birdcage with it. I don't care, it's yours, okay? So, whatever you want to do. All right.
Tony,
Yes.
as a point of the importance of the location quotient,
Yeah.
and that is going to be a much greater discussed issue in northern Indiana shortly,
Yes, it will be.
because it is required under the comprehensive economic development strategies that are now being prepared for submission to U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration, that location quotients be calculated for each of the organizational areas jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in short order, particularly in the next 60 days, there will be discussion of location quotients regarding the new economic development districts EDA submission document.
Right.
And I'll leave you to explain the positives and negatives of the use of that
Right.
as a tool
Right.
for the determination of a specific economic development strategy.
Let me just interject a little bit before I get into the nuts and bolts of alternative measures. One of the and you might see it here, but it's kind of hidden in the overly simplistic mathematics here. One of the criticisms we have about the location quotient is that very often it's almost self-fulfilling. We're talking local employment and industry divided by local employment. That numerator is probably not a bad thing right there. It's in the denominator, the reference area employment and industry. The industry already exists. So we're using the information from an already existing industry to measure just how strong the industry is within that cluster. It seems to be a little circular logic there. And that's a problem that we have in using, that's a problem that we see in the literature, in using the location quotient exclusively as a measure of whether or not a particular cluster exists. What were you going to say, Chuck?
Back in the 70s, when you would do a location at LQ, most places would say, well, boy, we are 1.8 in the automotive industry. Fast forward to 2010, what did that tell us as economic developers back in the 70s and early 80s of what we should be doing?
Yeah.
All it does is it describes a point in time, a piece of information. It does not describe, in my opinion,
Well, it
a
certainly doesn't
cluster
tell us what to do. It doesn't.
or what
There's no
either-
indicator as to what should happen as a result of the number that we derive. And the number that we derive is also kind of, it's I don't want to go so far as to say it's convoluted, but if we're